Hey, what's up YouTube? Donovan Smartphone Guy coming back at you with another video, and tonight I'm excited to bring to you my first impressions of a phone from Cricket Wireless. This is the ZTE Blade X Max. So this is a phone that if you are a new customer and you're porting over a line to Cricket, you can pick it up for $100. Or if you are just upgrading and you're already on Cricket, you can pick it up for $150. So you can see it's only available right now in the one color for blue. I don't know if it's going to be available in any other colors, but at the moment it's just available in blue. If you're thinking to yourself that this is a phone that looks an awful lot like the Z Max Pro, I would say that you're very correct. In a lot of ways, this is kind of like the Cricket version of the Z Max Pro with a couple tweaks. So we'll go ahead and talk about what those are and whether this phone is worth it. So this is going to be a first impressions video. I'll put out a couple more videos about this device because I've only had it for about 6 hours at this point. So been using it pretty heavily over that 6 hours, but we're going to go ahead and talk about what all this thing has to offer and whether I think it's worth those prices. So let's go ahead and set the phone off to the side for the moment and just talk about what you get in the box. So first of all, you get a Type-C cable, throw that off to the side. We also get a wall adapter for charging it, and you can see here that it is a 1.5 amp wall adapter. And so the phone itself is actually capable of Quick Charge 2.0, so it's not the fastest charge you can get, but it's still a pretty good charge. I was getting about 1700 milliamps when I tested it out just to kind of see. With a Qualcomm 2.0 fast wall adapter, you'll get a little bit faster charging, like a little bit over 2000 milliamps. So if you want the fastest charging out of it, you'll want to pick up a Qualcomm 2.0 fast charge wall adapter. The other things you get is some nice Spanish reading material. So, or you flip it over and you get terms and conditions. So if you're looking for a good read, check that out. Product safety and warranty information, maybe just a little bit more reading for that evening, and a SIM card, which I need to activate on the phone, and then also the quick start guide, which, you know, if you're the picture kind of person, there you go, some pictures. All right, so go ahead and set that off to the side. There's the box. So some things that they mention on the box. So we got that 6-inch full HD display, 13 megapixel camera on the back and 5 megapixel on the front. We have a fingerprint reader, and we have Dolby audio built into it. So we'll take a look at all that stuff in just a moment. So looking at the device, on the front, we have our capacitive buttons on the front. So home, back, and recent apps. Those can be swapped in software. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that in a little bit. And we have our ZTE branding up top. We have a 5 megapixel camera there, and there's our speaker for phone calls. We have our Type-C charging port there. We have a microphone on the bottom as well. On the top, we have a headphone jack, Yahoo, and we have another microphone. On the right-hand side, we have our power button, which you can see is nice and tactile, and then we also have our volume rocker. And on the left side, we just have our SIM tray, which also has a micro SD expansion slot there as well. So on the back, what you'll notice is we have our speaker. We have our fingerprint reader, which works very well. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. We have a flash, and then we have our 13 megapixel camera. And notice that the back on this phone, you can see lots of fingerprints on it. And that's because it's a very glossy back. So the Z Max Pro, which is a very similar phone, had a more felty back. So not as fingerprint magnety, but also didn't look as premium as this one. So this is more plastic, but looks very nice. So let's go ahead and open up the phone. So there's that 1080p display, beautiful viewing angles. And I gotta say that ZTE with the Z Max Pro and with this phone, just beautiful displays. So even though they're only 1080p, you know, there's 2K displays out now, I just think that this display is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, definitely a beautiful display. In terms of the build, obviously we got plastic, nice hard plastic, but it is plastic nonetheless. Plastic on the back as well, but still very nice build, I think. Obviously it's a huge phone. It's definitely going to be a large phone. So if you're not used to having a large phone, you know, maybe it's worth trying out. I actually like it. So you got that huge display, which is awesome for like YouTube viewing, Netflix, things like that. gaming, things like that as well. So in terms of the build, I would give it, it's not the most premium build, but definitely a nice build nonetheless. So next, let's talk about the performance. So this phone has a Snapdragon 435 processor, and I've reviewed a number of phones with that same processor on it. And so far, that processor, and I don't know why Geekbench always has that issue where when it's already been loaded, it always takes a while to load up. So I always have to reload it. And that doesn't matter what device it is. But anyways, this has a Snapdragon 435 processor, and we'll go ahead and go into the history, and you can see the scores there. So on paper, not going to be the fastest processor, but honestly, in every phone I've ever used with that 435 processor, it works very well. And in terms of, so I have a couple games here that I loaded up. So, well, really just one. NBA Jam, it's my favorite game to play. Got it. I have that little button there. Got to get rid of that. So anyways, gameplay, I was playing NBA Jam. It's absolutely fluid, no issues whatsoever. And really everything that I've done so far, we'll do that later, has been very fluid. So absolutely no hiccups in the gameplay. So even though it's only a Snapdragon 435, and this has been true of every phone I've ever used with that processor, it performs very well in day-to-day usage. So anyways, you don't need to watch me play NBA Jam, but I just wanted to show you that it does work quite well. Now this has 2 gigs of RAM, so obviously it's not 3 or 4, which would be nice, but we're talking about $100, $150 phone. So 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of onboard storage. Out of the box, you get about 21 gigs of storage available. I've already downloaded some apps, so out of the box, you get about 21 though that's available. And again, you can expand that with a micro SD card, which is really nice. So next thing I want to talk about is the software that's on here. So go back in here into the settings and jump all the way down to the bottom, and you can see that we have Android 7.1.1. So basically about as new as you can possibly get. And we do have the March security patch. So not quite as updated as like my G6 or my S8 that both have the April security patch, but still very well updated. For the most part, this is very much a stock Android phone. There's very little that ZTE adds into their phones, and I really like that. So let's just talk about a couple of things that are added in here. So one thing that I noticed is that Ambient Display. It kind of has it built in here. We have this press power button twice for camera, which I don't have turned on at the moment. But other than that, the only other things that I noticed that were not stock would be this My Pop, which you can see I have turned on at the moment. But basically this is just a shortcut key, which is nice. With this being such a large phone, kind of helps with that one-handed usability, I suppose. So if you just kind of like swipe it over, you can see that we have some options here. So I can take a quick screenshot. So that's what that one does. We'll go back in there. And so we have home, we have the lock screen, and then what was that one? Looks like it's a mute option. So just a few options there. Whoops. And so we can get rid of that, of course, as well by turning it off in the settings. So we go back into My Pop, turn that thing off. So for the most part, this is very much a stock Android feel though. So that's one thing I really like about ZTE phones. Go in here and you can see that there really isn't a whole lot added to the phone in terms of bloatware. We have WPS Office. I added Twitter, so that one's not something that they put in there. They have a selfie, which is basically just a camera, but it automatically jumps you right into the selfie camera. Let's see what else we got here. Got, of course, the Cricket apps. I had a Geekbench 4. But for the most part, yeah. There's Deezer, which is a music app that is Cricket exclusive. And then we do have this health app called Argus as well. So that is built into the phone. But for the most part, very much a stock Android 7.1.1 experience, which is great. In terms of battery life, so again, this is running the Snapdragon 435 processor with a 3,400 milliamp hour battery. And I will say this, you're probably going to get very good battery life out of this phone. So far, you can see 3 hours of screen on time with 41%. that is starting from like 85 out of the box. And that's with downloading a few apps, things like that, taking some pictures to test it out. And so obviously I'm going to do some more testing here, but the battery life, I imagine, is probably going to be quite good on this phone. That's just kind of my first impression. In terms of camera, so again, we got a 13 megapixel camera on the back, 5 megapixel camera on the front. I'll just go ahead and go through a few pictures here that I've done so far. Just very early preliminary look, but that is a low light selfie picture. You can see that not a lot of detail in the picture. But even like, you know, some of the best phones, some of the more flagship phones wouldn't take all that great of pictures in those conditions either. So there's just a picture, there's a selfie picture. So same picture with the back camera and selfie camera. So that one's with the selfie camera. And another selfie camera picture there. Little video. All these will be at the end of this video as well. So we're going to skip over that and go back. And the last thing I want to talk about, last two things. So camera so far, I would say, is pretty much on par with the Z Max Pro. In low light, not the best, but still not, you know, for a $100 to $150 phone, still pretty good. So the next thing I want to talk about is the fingerprint sensor and how well that works. So you can see, just we'll go ahead and test it a couple times just to see how fast it opens up. So you can see it's very, very fast. As soon as I put my finger on it, it is opening, so that's very good. And last thing we want to look at is the speakers. So we're going to go ahead and take a listen to that. Is that opening? There we go. All right, so let's listen to some safe and sound. Now, the speaker again is on the back, so I'm going to flip it upside down like this when we listen to the song, and then I'll put it right up next to my microphone as well. So let's go ahead and take a listen. Crank it all the way up. We're going to listen to this for a second because this is not... This is a copyrighted song, so we're going to listen to it for a second here. Okay, so all that is to say that the speaker does get quite loud. Obviously, it is not in the best position here, but it is quite loud. And so I think overall, you know, for like those speaker calls, you're going to be just fine. But again, not the best positioning. I wish it was at least at the bottom. You know, that would have been preferable, but, you know, obviously the front would have been even better. So with that being said, that is my first impressions video of the Cricket ZTE Blade X Max. And so far, I would say that this is definitely a phone that I would pick up. I obviously did already, but I would say this is a phone definitely worth considering picking up if you're a Cricket customer. I will also mention that it is quite easy to unlock. So if you want to use it on Metro PCS or T-Mobile or AT&T, it'd be very easy to unlock. But anyways, with that being said, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.